Imagine if we just dunked all of our stuff for the first time.
Yep.
This is a very different podcast because we're in the Connecticut River in a kayak with our cameras, and we're going to tell you all about how we do kayak photography, everything from the gear and the settings to how we manage a kayak to why we use a tandem kayak to help our pictures be better.
This is the best way to spend your wildlife photography budget. Like for $200, you can get a kayak that will make such a difference in your pictures. Another way to make a great difference in your pictures is to change how they're presented by going to squarespace.com/Chelsea.
If you're looking for a place to host your photos, whether they were taken from a kayak or not, you can go to Squarespace. You can try it for free for 14 days and put them up there. See how professional you look, how easy it is to share. There's no ads to distract people when they come to see your photos. When you like it and you want to buy it, go to squarespace.com/Chelsea and use the coupon code Chelsea to get 10% off. Thanks, Squarespace. Okay, let's get to our little spot down here. Before we get too much into the technical stuff, I want to talk about why we love taking our photos from a kayak. For one thing, it's fun and it's beautiful, which means that we get out more often. Even if nothing happens when you're out kayaking, it's a good time. And photographically speaking, we're at a very low angle. So there's grasses around us. We're looking up at the birds. We're very close to them, so we get some more interesting shots. I think with any type of photography, it's nice when you're combining two things that you like and you end up with better shots. So you'll notice that like musicians often become great concert photographers because they're there all the time and they understand what's needed. Or if you love golf, you might be someone who's photographing golf courses or doing drone shots on golf courses. You understand the culture and what people like. When you combine photography with another hobby or another thing that you love, you get a more unique perspective and more interesting shots. You don't think this will like overheat or anything? I don't have to turn it off?
It should be okay.
Wow, this is so much better than the R5 too. Let's talk about camera gear because things are a little bit different when you're on a boat. Now, you definitely can use a 600mm f4. I would, it's just that I really like my zoom. I have a Sony 200-600 here. And one thing that I like about it is it's got an internal zoom, which is nice, but it's easy to handle. I'm putting it right here between my legs, between shots when I need to paddle. It's pretty small and compact and also easy to handle if I'm going like this. I also keep a strap around my neck in case I drop it. It should be shorter so it doesn't go in the water. One thing that's nice about the zoom is that I can start at 200mm and get a wide shot with beautiful landscapes because I'm so close to the animals a lot of the time when I'm kayaking. But I can also zoom in if I want that cropped really close shot. Oh, there's a little turtle. The other thing is I'm using the Alpha 1, the Sony Alpha 1, and you don't need like the best flagship camera, but one thing I love about it is that the autofocus is very good, which is super important when your boat is moving around because now it's not just your subject moving, you're moving as well. So you're going to have more camera shake and more camera motion. For settings, really the only thing different is that I keep my shutter speed higher because there is often movement introduced that I can't control. Right now we're in a channel and there's not a lot of wind, but when it was windier in the main part of the river, the boat was moving around a lot and I couldn't really even get subjects in the frame that were being predictable. A stabilized sensor works well, or a stabilized lens, a really good autofocus so that you're grabbing things in the shot even when you're moving around a bit, and a zoom lens helps you get more versatility in your shot and find your subjects in the frame when you're moving a bit. Oh, little plover. They're so cute.
The best time to kayak is in the mornings, usually because the wind is lower in the mornings. Of course, you also get the golden hour light and animals tend to be more active. Maybe they're a little hungry after sleeping through the night. I check the weather the night before to see if the winds are going to be calm. I usually like to go out when the winds are under 5 miles an hour, but a lot of people will go up to 10 miles an hour. That means you're not working as hard, you're not going to get tired. But it also means the water is a little more glassy, and that tends to make it easier for shorebirds and osprey to grab fish, so I feel like the shooting is better.
It also makes it easier to shoot because your boat's not rocking around.
There's good kayaking most places in the world. The app I use to find good spots to launch from is called Go Paddling, and that shows boat ramps, but it has reviews and pictures as well as instructions on how to park. and get there. Try out all the different spots in your area and find the ones where different animals are. You might find them different at different times of the year or different times of the day. We are always looking for the spots with the best osprey, and it changes. And right now it's out here at Great Island, but other times it's in different parts of the area. So be flexible and join birding groups online to sort of find out what the hot spots are. Most of the rivers around here are tidal. Lakes and ponds won't be. We need to monitor the tides pretty carefully because you'll have a very different experience at high tide than at low tide. And what you don't want to do is to go out near low tide when the tide is falling, because then your kayak might be stuck if the water gets too shallow. So I have it on my smartwatch here so I can constantly monitor what the tide levels are, because I always forget until I get out there. But tides are also important for the behavior of the animals, because osprey and shorebirds might go to different locations depending on the water levels, because it's easier or harder for them to fish. So get to know the tides intimately.
More turtles. Do you see how many turtles? Oh my God. Tony, we're in turtle paradise.
I like turtles.
So we're going to talk about the kayaking gear that we use and some safety tips and some other things. But first, we want to plug our sponsor, Squarespace, for making this Out in the Wild podcast possible. And we love Squarespace because it's a place where we host our pictures, where we have control over where they look. There's not ads interrupting. There's not other people's pictures showing up in a social media feed. Like, you're directing people to a professional place where they can look at your contacts, your contracts, your galleries, purchasing your prints. It makes owning a photo business way easier. So check it out. You can try it for free. Like, if you don't believe me, go there, get the 14-day free trial. You don't have to pay any money or remember to cancel, and you'll get the full experience. And then, of course, when you want to buy it, you can get 10% off with the coupon code Chelsea. That saves you 10%, but it also lets Squarespace know that we're doing a good job with all of this. Okay, I wanted to actually talk about why we choose a tandem kayak. I think this is like low-key controversial, because I've heard in kayaking forums, Tony, that tandem kayaks can tear your relationship apart. And I've heard so many people say they like really fight in a tandem kayak. And I understand why. You have to coordinate. I would say put the most patient person in the back, because they're the one watching you paddle. So when you coordinate, like, they're kind of putting up with your nonsense if you're not being consistent. But the reason why it works really well for us is because if there's a bird flying overhead, I can put down my paddle. Tony paddles, which is not that hard because we choose days without a lot of wind. He also pans for me. So if an animal is flying overhead, he'll actually steer the kayak so that I can pan. Otherwise, your movement is limited, right? If you're on land, you get to kind of walk around. But here, it's like my torso flexibility is really dictating that without Tony. So we team up. He's panning. He's my second set of eyes. And we're able to get much better pictures that way.
You can definitely get great shots out there solo, but whenever you're shooting, you're not paying attention to your surroundings, so your boat will drift. And you could end up drifting into something. You might also not notice other kayakers or boaters or things that could cause danger. So having two people really improves your safety a lot. Chelsea, you want to talk a little bit more about safety and how we stay safe in a kayak?
Yeah, well, one thing is that I do bring smaller gear, so that's not weighing it down. And then we have these inflatable vests on, which I like. They're not as bulky as a regular vest. When you hit the water, they inflate. We keep that on because you don't know what's going to happen. You could bump your head. Another thing that is actually safety is keeping the wind down. We know that our boat's not going to get flooded if we're not paying attention. We try to stay away from motor boats and things. And what else are we doing for safety, Tony?
If a boat comes through and makes a huge wake, which they shouldn't do, but if they do, turn into that wake and paddle into it. And that'll keep your boat much more stable, because it's easy for a wake to flip a kayak, which quickly becomes a dangerous situation that also wrecks all your camera gear.
This is not human safety, but gear safety. Make sure you have insurance. You can put it on your homeowner sometimes, but if not, you can buy a separate plan. We have not had anything happen to our gear in a kayak until today, when Tony took the Pocket 3 out for this video and dropped it in the water. So knock on kayak. That's the only gear we've lost taking pictures from a kayak. It's harder to film a video. We have a camera mounted to the front right now and it's scaring me. Are you trying to turn around? Maybe if this isn't relationship ruining, it's relationship building, because we have to coordinate a lot.
Oh, look at that cute little bird at 3 o'clock. Look how little it is.
You probably just heard Tony say, look at that cute little bird at 3 o'clock.
Goose, there's Viper, 3 o'clock low.
We've actually developed some skills for managing everything. So one of them is that when he spots something, he tells me where it is, like on a clock, so I know where to look because I can't see him behind me. And another thing is he's kind of perfected paddling the kayak to get us in the right spot. Did you ever think we'd be kayak people? Ooh, ooh, ooh. Wow, the wildlife is really out, especially the turtles.
I like turtles.
Another good photo technique for the kayak, if you're using a zoom, is to keep it zoomed out at 200. I just had something fly by and I was zoomed into 600 and I couldn't get it in the frame. You have a little less time to react here. You're a little bit closer to things usually. So it doesn't hurt to stay zoomed out. And you can this is zooming all the way in. It's a very small movement, so you can quickly zoom. Kayak strategy, Tony has been working it out. What are you doing paddling back there?
Well, if the person in front is paddling, then I sync up to her. When her left paddle goes in, my left paddle goes in, and vice versa.
We've never had you in the front and me in the back, so maybe that would tear our relationship apart. We'll have to try that.
When there's a bird flying past us, I want to keep Chelsea pointed at the bird. So I have techniques to quickly pivot. I will turn my paddle backwards and then push back against the water and paddle forward in the other direction. And that allows me to do a 180 with just 4 or 5 strokes. And that can mean that she gets a few more shots in before the animal leaves. I can also dip the paddle in just really gently and be pretty much silent and just keep the kayak in a single spot for times when she's waiting for an egret to catch a fish, for example, or we just want to gently approach a bird without disturbing it along the shoreline. Like lots of little black herons, night herons can be so shy that you really develop these techniques of being like silent and subtle so that you can get a little bit better shot at them. And that is really key to what we're getting out of wildlife photography in a kayak, the ability to get just a little bit closer, just a few feet closer, not only produces a sharper image, you can get a better image from an inexpensive zoom lens than you could with a $14,000 600 f4 if you can get just that little bit closer. Here's an example of the power of getting closer. This is the same bird, same camera, same lens. Let's zoom in to the same scale because you'd have to crop. Wow, the closer picture looks so much better. You can see all the detail in the feathers. The grain is less prominent since it's not cropped so heavily. But most importantly, the bird really feels more 3D. It feels less flat because it's a little bit wider angle. When it's a little bit wider angle, the pictures are more intimate, more personal, and that helps viewers of the image actually connect to the wildlife. And that is the larger goal of wildlife photography.
That was beautiful. We also installed this to hold my paddle while I take pictures, and it's very helpful. Otherwise, if you try to balance it, it can fall in the water. So mounting your paddle while you take pictures is going to save you. Okay, so those are our tips. If you have any more questions about getting photos from a kayak, if you want to try it, if you want advice on what kayak we like, let us know in the comments down below. Thanks so much for watching the Picture This Photography podcast, which is outside today. And thank you, Squarespace, for making it all possible and for providing beautiful websites made easily. If you want your very own, go to squarespace.com/Chelsea and use the coupon code Chelsea to get 10% off. This is so pretty. That osprey. Dragonfly. There's an osprey nest up there.